Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. And the Oscar goes to Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven. Picture this. Beverly Hills, 1993. The lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel is packed. Movie producers in fancy suits, Oscar winners drinking whiskey, and somewhere near the big piano, Clint Eastwood stands alone, looking serious, eyes narrowed, arms crossed. Across the room, a young actor is talking loudly, laughing, name-dropping, telling a story that ends with a cheap copy of the old cowboy movie director. Everyone giggles except Clint. He doesn't say a word, just finishes his drink, nods to the bartender and walks out the door without looking back. No fight, no big scene, just quiet. And the kind of quiet that's final. For years, people whispered about that moment. What was said? What did Clint hear? Why did that actor's name disappear from Warner Brothers movie lists soon after? Never knew. Because Clint Eastwood didn't explain. He didn't get angry or tweet or give newspaper quotes. He just got rid of people quietly, coldly, forever. But now the quiet is breaking. At 94, the legend is finally letting his guard down. And in a few rare moments of honest talking, Apatern has showed up. 5 names, 5 famous people. Clint Eastwood never forgave. The ones who insulted him, didn't respect his work, or simply made the big mistake of thinking he'd forgotten. They didn't just fight with a movie maker. They crossed a man who lived by rules and never backed down. First in that list, a documentary, Firestarter, who tried to make a name for himself by making fun of Clint's beliefs. And Clint, he didn't laugh. He didn't fight back. He just made sure it never happened again. Michael Moore, the documentary fight. It started with a joke, or at least Michael Moore thought it was a joke. In 2005, during a National Board of Review Awards event, Clint Eastwood took the stage and said a line that made everyone stop laughing. Michael Moore and I actually have a lot in common. We both like documentaries, but if he ever shows up at my front door with a camera, I'll kill him. The audience laughed nervously. A few gasped. Clint didn't move. He didn't follow it up with a smile. Didn't give the room an easy way out. The uncomfortable feeling stayed in the air like gunpowder. This wasn't comedy. This was a warning. Clint had just drawn a line in the sand. One Moore never dared to cross again. The reasons for this cold hate went deeper than just one comment. Moore had been making waves with his documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, a harsh attack on the Bush government and American military actions after 9/11. It won awards. It made headlines, and it made Clint angry. To Eastwood, who had grown up respecting World War II heroes and honoring quiet service, Moore's work felt like a cheap shot wrapped in showing off. He didn't see it as criticism. He saw it as betrayal. And it hit close to home. Because by then, Clint wasn't just an actor. He was a director, a storyteller, a man who had just finished $1 Million Baby and was about to release Flags of Our Fathers. His movies looked at American identity, sacrifice, and pain, not for headlines, but for history. Michael Moore, in Clint's eyes, wasn't showing the truth. He was oozing it. The two never worked together, never even stood in the same picture again. And if you asked Clint about him today, he'd probably raise an eyebrow, grunt once, and change the subject. Because Eastwood doesn't believe in public fights. He believes in quiet erasing. But Moore wasn't the only movie maker who tested Clint's patience. The next one, he took it even further, saying Clint was hiding history on a world stage. And Clint Eastwood didn't just push back, he fired back. Spike Lee, A Battle Over History. Clint Eastwood rarely talks back, but in 2008 he made an exception, and it wasn't pretty. When Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima hit theaters, critics praised Eastwood's big double feature. One film from the American side, the other from the Japanese. It was raw, tough, honest. But Spike Lee, something major was missing. He publicly said Clint was erasing Black Marines from the story of Iwo Jima, calling out the lack of representation in Flags of Our Fathers. Many African Americans gave their lives. Spike said, "You can't ignore that." Clint was furious. He didn't respond with careful words or press politeness. He fired back with something that sounded more like a Western threat. A guy like him should shut his face. It wasn't just defensive, it was explosive. Headlines caught fire. Spike didn't hold back either. "I'm not going to shut up." He sounds like an angry old man. For days, the fight took over entertainment news. 2 movie making giants, one the old-fashioned cowboy, the other the modern challenger, fought in a war of words that showed Hollywood's deepest problems. And while many tried to help or explain the fight, Clint never clarified his words. That silence said everything. To Eastwood, the story of Iwo Jima was about a specific group of soldiers. He wasn't interested in checking boxes. He was interested in telling his story the way he saw it. And he wasn't going to let anyone control his art. But Spike saw it differently. He believed Clint had a responsibility to tell the full story of history, especially when lives were lost in silence. It wasn't just about a film, it was about the importance of representation, and for two men as proud, with strong beliefs and stubborn as Eastwood and Lee, compromise was never possible. They haven't spoken since. They don't go to the same events. They don't appear on the same panels. And neither has praised the other's work, at least not publicly. But if you thought Clint only fought with fellow directors, think again. Because his next fight happened on his own movie set with one of the most famous actors in the world, an actor who tried to test Clint's patience and lost. Leonardo DiCaprio, Method versus Gunslinger. They were two stars from two different times. Leonardo DiCaprio, the intense, emotionally charged method actor, and Clint Eastwood, the tough, no-nonsense movie maker who valued speed, silence, and control. When Eastwood cast DiCaprio in 2011's J. Edgar, Hollywood buzzed. It was the ultimate crash of old school and new school. But behind the scenes, that crash turned into a quiet storm. From day one, the tension was obvious. Clint was famous for his one-take, directing style. Little rehearsal, limited setup, shoot, and move on. It was efficient, it was instinctual, and it was the complete opposite of how DiCaprio worked. Leo liked to explore. He wanted multiple takes. He asked questions. He dove into emotional layers that frustrated Clint. While DiCaprio searched for subtlety, Clint was already calling, cut, move on. Crew members whispered about the tension. One insider said it was like watching a racehorse try to run in cowboy boots. There were no screaming matches, no walkouts, but the energy on set was tense. Two master craftsmen with wildly different approaches locked in assailant struggle over how a story should be told. DiCaprio did his best to adapt. Clint didn't budge. The film got made. It was released. And then silence. No skint working together. No warm praise in interviews. No shout-outs during awards season. Clint, who frequently uses actors he likes, like Morgan Freeman and Bradley Cooper, never called Leo again. Some say it was creative incompatibility. Others believe Clint saw DiCaprio as high maintenance, theatrical, even selfish. Whatever the case, their professional paths split like a cracked lens, and Eastwood never looked back. But while DiCaprio may have challenged Clint's control behind the camera, the next name on the list did something far worse. He made fun of Eastwood's work in front of the entire world and got away with it, or so he thought. Seth Rogen, the sniper insult that Clint never forgot. Some actors make quiet enemies. Seth Rogen made highs loud. In 2014, Clint Eastwood released American Sniper, a biographical war drama about Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. The film split critics, but broke box office records and started a cultural firestorm. For many, it was attribute to military service, but for Rogen, it was something else entirely. Just days after its release, Rogen went to Twitter with a joke that left jaws on the floor. American Sniper kind of reminds me of the movie that's showing in the third act of Inglourious Basterds, the one where the Nazi sniper is killing allies. He didn't mention Clint by name. He didn't have to. The hint was nuclear, comparing Eastwood's film to Nazi propaganda. And though Rogen insisted it was just a joke, the damage had already been done. Clint Eastwood didn't tweet back. He didn't make a statement. He didn't say a word because Clint doesn't do social media battles. He does silence. Ice-cold silence. Behind closed doors, insiders say Eastwood was furious. Not just because of the insult, but because it was public. It wasn't a debate. It was a hit and run. To Clint, it wasn't just disrespectful. It was cowardly. And while Rogen would later backpedal saying he wasn't calling American Sniper Nazi propaganda, the apology never reached Clint's ears or his heart. Eastwood never mentioned Rogen again, never worked with him, and reportedly made it clear to close collaborators, if Rogen's name ever showed up on a casting list, it better disappear fast. Because if there's one thing Clint Eastwood doesn't tolerate, it's being disrespected by someone who thinks everything is a joke. But this next name, this final name, wasn't a comedian or a political loudmouth. He was Clint's equal, his peer, his co-star, and their fight brewed in total silence until one unforgettable film nearly blew it all wide open. Gene Hackman, the rival he couldn't direct. On screen, they were electric. Off screen, they barely spoke. In 1992, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman joined forces for Unforgiven, a film that redefined the Western and swept the Oscars. It looked like a perfect collaboration between two giants, but behind the calm performances was a slow-burning storm. Clint was known for running a tight, respectful set, have-elude control, quiet, and trust. Hackman. He was unpredictable, fiery, and famously combative. While Eastwood gave his actors freedom, he expected discipline. Hackman brought heat. Too much of it. From the very first week of filming, there were whispers of trouble. Hackman didn't take direction easily. He'd interrupt Clint's instructions, challenge, blocking, push for line rewrites. It wasn't rebellion, it was pride. One assistant remembered a moment during a big scene where Hackman paused mid-take, turned to Clint, and said, "That line doesn't work. I'm not saying it." Clint didn't argue. He simply stared. Then, with a soft but deadly tone, replied, "You will." It wasn't yelling. It was final. Tension hung over the rest of the shoot like Adisert's storm cloud. They never argued in front of the crew, but their silences said more than words ever could. Mutual respect, sure. Mutual affection, not a trace. After Unforgiven, both men walked away with gold statues, but that was the last time they ever walked onto the same set. Clint never invited Hackman back, never called him a favorite collaborator, and when asked about the film years later, he'd mention Morgan Freeman. He'd mention Richard Harris, but rarely if ever Hackman industry insiders believed the respect was real, but the relationship was unsalvageable. Too much ego, too much friction, and in Clint's world that means only one thing, one and done. Hackman would retire from acting not long after. Eastwood continued on, carefully choosing who he brought into his circle. Because for Clint Eastwood, chemistry isn't about fame, it's about trust. And once that's broken, even by a fellow legend, it's over. 2 stars, 1 unforgettable film, and a wall of silence that never cracked. Because when Clint Eastwood closes a door, it stays shut. The silence of the gunslinger. Clint Eastwood never needed to shout to make a statement. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't air dirty laundry in interviews. He just watched, waited, and when someone crossed the line, he didn't fire back. He cut them out quietly, forever. In Hollywood, where reputations are built on charm and working together, Clint built his legacy on something else entirely. Unwavering conviction. These 5 famous people learned the hard way that working with Eastwood wasn't just a job. It was a test. A test of respect, discipline, and knowing when to keep your ego in check. Some failed it spectacularly. So now the question is yours. Do you think Clint was right to stay silent, or did some of these grudges go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. And if you want more untold truths from the golden age of Hollywood, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because for every name Clint Eastwood couldn't stand, there's another he quietly admired, and we'll be revealing those very soon.